What's happening, guys? Happy Monday. And if you're watching live on YouTube, happy Sunday. And welcome to the Dynasty Warzone's Mock Draft Monday. That's right, it's back after taking the New Year's week of holiday off. We are back with another mock draft. Today we're going to do a one-round rookie mock draft. It's going to be Superflex and tight end premium. And I'll tell you who's always at a premium. He is my co-host. He is the man of the hour. He is the man with the power. Now, Jerry, if you're watching live on YouTube, I do have on this fine Indianapolis Colts hat, but your dirty Detroit Lions did not make it into the playoffs.
Which is an absolute shocker to zero human beings that live on this planet, because that organization is a dumpster fire. Actually, it was a little entertaining today. I will say that. It was fun to watch Matthew Stafford in potentially his last game in the Honolulu Blue. We'll see. It was fun. I'm glad they lost. I was rooting for them to lose, but that roughing the passer was one of the most egregious penalties I have ever seen called. A crock of shit, for lack of a better phrase.
Well, I'm not going to keep this intro too long because tonight we have guests. We do plenty of promoting here on the show. We'll talk about the reviews, the YouTube, and everything, but because we have guests and it's never polite to keep guests waiting, I'm just going to say make sure you tune back in on Tuesday night, because we're going to have Mark Schofield of Touchdown Wire, a.k.a. He's worked with Matt Waldman and so many others. He's going to be doing our rookie 5-question games with this rookie class. Now, we've been doing 5 rookies with 5 questions. Mark is such a gent. We're going to do 6 rookies with 5 questions. So make sure you're locked into the Dynasty Warzone, because we're going to be talking this sweet upcoming 2021 rookie class. But man, let's get on to our guest. Our first guest is a gentleman. His name is Tyler Orginski. He is the owner of the Fantasy Hot Read and an all-around swell guy. Tyler, welcome to the show. And what's your Twitter handle, my friend?
You can find me on Twitter at FFTylerO, and I'm thrilled to be here and chop it up with you all about some Dynasty rookie drafts.
Yeah, we're going to jump into that. But real quick, before we bring in someone from your team, tell us a little bit about the Hot Read, man. What's been going on? How was your 2020? What's on the outlook for 2021? What's going down with y'all?
Yeah, so traditionally, we're just a redraft content, crushing that. You know, the waiver articles, sleepers, all that good stuff. We have a preview pod for every single week. But recently, we've also been dipping our toes into the DFS water, and that's been mainly myself and my friend here, Louie, been doing the DFS pod. So it's been really hammering redraft stuff. We got real short, concise fire articles for everybody, good podcasts, and then also starting to dive into DFS, mainly talking cash games on DraftKings main slate.
I love it, because I need some good DFS content providers in my life. Me and my good buddy Dr. Kyle on the Big Bet podcast, we try our asses off, but we could damn sure use some ringers to jump in and help us out. And speaking of ringers, this guy might be the DFS ringer over at the Fantasy Hot Read. We know him as Lou Sherman, but you can find him on Twitter at Lou Dog Sports. Lou, also welcome to the DWZ. How are you, my friend?
Good, great to be here. It was a good day today. I played your guys' Marvin Jones, and he obviously went off. A little bummer here with that third touchdown when they overturned it, but I mean,
another ridiculous call by the ref. It was bad.
Absolutely.
I mean, it happens every week with that team, but I had a pretty good season, and me and Tyler, we did our show each week, and that definitely helped get through the year and find some good plays.
Well, I'm really glad you guys jumped on with us. I'm excited to talk rookies. Now, we did not, before we hit the record button, we did not decide an order, but since we're going Superflex and we're going tight end premium, and I know that the Lions are going to draft Kyle Pitts with their 7th overall pick. I can't wait for it.
Go to hell. I'm getting off. I'm hanging out.
I'm on a coffin stapled to roller skates to hell. But I will take the 101, and the reason why is I think the 101 is one of the easier picks to make. So we'll just go clockwise from the top of the screen. We'll go me, Tyler will take the 2, Lou will take the 3, Jerry, you take the 4, and then we'll just repeat 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I'm at the 101. This is a no-brainer, guys. This is a slam dunk. This is the layup of layups. It is Trevor Lawrence. Now, I will be dead honest. As a Colts fan, I am not excited to have Trevor Lawrence in the AFC South. I mean, realistically, I was thinking about this when I was watching the game earlier. Regardless of who the Colts have at quarterback next year, we arguably have the worst quarterback in the division. I mean, you've got Deshaun Watson, arguably a top 3 quarterback in the entire NFL. And now you're going to be bringing in this guy. And Ryan Tannehill has been a very good quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. So I'm not excited to see him here. And I'll be honest, from a dynasty standpoint, I am not excited about hitching my wagon or Trevor Lawrence's wagon to the Jacksonville Star, but it bees that way sometimes. So even though I would have preferred him to be a Jet, I am going to take Trevor Lawrence. No real big surprise here at the 101. I'm going to throw it to Tyler. Do you have anything to push back on the 101 before you make the 102? And what are your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence?
I'm with you. No pushback whatsoever. I think that Trevor Lawrence for the longest time was considered that lock 101 until we just saw my pick, Justin Fields, at the 102 battle a few days back. I think that there's a bit of a Twitter hive mind going on right now about Justin Fields over Trevor Lawrence. I'm not buying that whatsoever. I still think Trevor Lawrence is the easy 101. He's definitely, in my mind, a better franchise overall quarterback. Not saying Justin Fields isn't, but I'm definitely team Trevor Lawrence 101. Have not changed that, but still, I think the easy 102 is going to be Justin Fields. I think he's not exactly your prototypical passer like Trevor Lawrence is, but I definitely I'm into quarterbacks that run the football. To me, that is always going to be one of the biggest pieces of any kind of fantasy football. If you can get a quarterback that can run for 300 yards, get a couple touchdowns, that's going to be the difference right there. The Konami code, we've all talked about that. We know how important it is, and I see Justin Fields as being able to do that. If he comes in the NFL, becomes a full-time starter, top 5 in rushing for quarterbacks is definitely in play. I like to see that. He throws well on the run. The way he moves around, he's going to give those man coverage team fits. I just think there's a lot of upside with Justin Fields, and I think he might be a better passer than people are giving him credit for.
Well, I love the pick, and you nailed it. I don't necessarily need a full-blown Konami code quarterback, but somewhere between Matt Ryan and Lamar Jackson is where I need my quarterback to be. Maybe a notch above a Ryan Tannehill. A guy, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, guys that can move, get out of the pocket. You can't be a statue back there because you're going to get blasted. So I'm going to throw this to Lou. Lou, what are your thoughts on Justin Fields before you make your pick at the 103?
Yeah, I like Justin Fields a lot. We saw him the other day, and he definitely proved that he's worthy of the hype, I think. Obviously, it's been a little more hype the last few days than it was, a month ago. But, in Dynasty, quarterbacks are usually pretty thin. So it's definitely important to get someone like a Fields who, I'm not looking for the number 10 quarterback out of a draft. I'm looking for the top 3 or 4, really. And you want someone that has that instant impact. And Fields is the type of guy who it seems like he might get, if he's on, say, the Jets, then he might be in a pretty good opportunity to start right away. And then I definitely would want him on a dynasty team.
All right, my friend, you are up with the 103. Who would you be taking here at the 103?
I'm going to change it up a little bit and take Travis Etienne. And he, that game the other night with Clemson, I was hoping to see Clemson versus Alabama in the title game, but, it is what it is. But I think Etienne's clearly the top running back out of this draft. And, we'd like to see him improve on things like a pass catching role, if you really want, for PPR sort of formats, any format. But I think that's something that he could pick up along the way. We've seen it with other running backs in the past, and, certain running backs like a Josh Jacobs was more of a pass catcher in college than he was in the NFL. So I think you bet on talent here, and Etienne's probably the best running back in this class, I'd say.
I love Etienne. I hope he lands with a creative offensive mind. I don't want him to land in – sorry, Jerry. I don't want him to land in some – because his life's going to get better as soon as the season's over. I don't want him to land in some stodgy, old man, defensive head coach-minded Matt Patricia dumpster fire the way that DeAndre Swift did. I want him to land with a a good offense. Like, nothing against Miles Gaskin and nothing against Salvin Ahmad or Ahmad, whatever his name is. I know who he is because my boy Pete Law loves him like family. But we've seen what these two mediocre guys have done in Miami. I would go absolutely bananas for a guy like Travis Etienne in Miami with Tua and that offense and all those draft picks they're going to have. So I love that. Jerry, I know you're an Etienne guy. What do you think about the Etienne pick? And then break down your guy. Who is your pick? Team Jerry 104.
Sort of pisses me off. I wanted Travis Etienne. I was sort of hoping the hype of the Najee Harris hurdle. Sorry, Tyler. I know Tyler's a Notre Dame guy.
I'm a Notre Dame and a Lions guy, so I'm just getting shit on here.
Yes, you are.
That's great.
But the hype for Najee has just been unreal, really. And the dude's awesome. Don't get me wrong. But I have always been a Travis Etienne guy. He was my RB2 last year. Had he come out, so he is still my 101 running back at least. So Lou sniped me on that one. So that's a good pick. But I feel like the first four are the first four guys that we've talked about. The two quarterbacks, Travis Etienne, and then Najee Harris, who I'm taking from Alabama. Just great picks. I think it's going to be a little bit tougher, so good luck with that, Randy. I feel like the 105 in a lot of rookie drafts is it's an iffy pick if you're not going to go quarterback. I think you're either going to go quarterback or you're going to go wide receiver, but I feel like it's a tier. I feel like these are going to be pretty chalk picks for the most part, depending how the draft shakes out. So I'm going to take Najee. Randy, I don't think you're going to disagree with any of these first four picks. I am curious to see which route you are going, especially the way you like to take the quarterback that people don't really love.
Well, I have been a person who has loved the unloved quarterback in my career. I can remember 3 years ago I was very high on a young man named Josh Allen. Maybe you've heard of him. He's okay at football. Then this year I was higher than consensus in the dynasty industry on a young man named Justin Herbert. So I do like these tall, strapping, athletic fellas. There is a quarterback that fits that mold in this particular draft class, but I'm not going to go that route. And the reason why is I'm currently looking at Tankathon. And for those that are regular listeners to the program know I reference Tankathon a lot. It's a great little up-to-date draft rankings. And currently at the 104, you have the Atlanta Falcons. And at the 108, depending on how this Sunday night game comes out, you could have the Carolina Panthers. And I will tell you that if for some reason the Atlanta Falcons take Zach Wilson, or if Carolina Panthers take Zach Wilson with that head coach and that offensive coordinator and DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel and Christian McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson and all the tools to work with in a division where scoring will always be at a premium, sign me up for Zach Wilson. So based on what I know today in January of 2021, knowing that, the full draft order will be solidified in the morning, knowing that, we'll see some combine stuff. If I had to do it today, what's the old expression, gun to my head, I would take Zach Wilson. I know he kind of came out of nowhere, but I also like quarterbacks that come out of less than trust fund positions. We saw Tua struggle today mightily against the Buffalo Bills. Baker came out of Oklahoma. He struggled initially. And who are the great quarterbacks? I mean, we're talking Patrick Mahomes, Texas Tech, Russell Wilson, Wisconsin via NC State. I mean, these guys that tend to come from atypical non-powerhouse conferences and schools as a quarterback are used to a little adversity. So I'm going to take the guy out of BYU. I'm a little worried about his size, but that's okay. I am going to take Zach Wilson at the 105. So I'm going back to Tyler. What do you think about Zach Wilson? Are you a Zach Wilson guy? Are you a different guy? And the reason why I went quarterback real quick, I always got to give this shout out to my man Izzy Alcafast of the Dynasty Trade Calculator. The cheapest time to acquire quarterbacks is always in your drafts. Whether it's your startup, whether it's your rookie drafts, you're never going to acquire quarterback help cheaper than you are on draft day. So that's why I went Zach Wilson as well. Tyler, anything on Zach before you make the 106?
I like the pick. I think he's definitely one of the two guys I was considering there. I do like the fact that it seems as though he has improved his mechanics and improved his throwing as he's progressed through college. So I do love to see that. Like you said, hasn't always been given the best of weapons, so it's always good to see a guy get it done. Not without all 5-star guys. So there is something to that, and I think he's got. I mean, I would say he has an elite arm. Like he throws rockets, man. I think there's a chance that things could come around. And Zach Wilson. I like the pick a lot. And then, not to give away my pick, I'm just confirming that we are talking tight end premium here.
Absolutely, because I know where you're going, because that was on my my mindset as well.
Yeah, so I have to go with Kyle Pitts. I think there's a lot of individuals out there in the Twitter atmosphere, the hive mind, what have you, that are a lot higher on Kyle Pitts than I am. I see people have him already in their top 5 dynasty rankings overall. I'm not exactly ready to anoint him there, but if I'm sitting at this pick and the 2 top running backs are off the board and the 3 top quarterbacks are off the board, I think the easy decision for me, that no brainer here, is going to be Kyle Pitts. He's not the traditional tight end where he's going to be a great blocker. I think he can block. I have some concerns about him being able to block at the NFL level, but that's not why I'm drafting him. And that's, I hope, why an NFL team would be drafting him, is his blocking. I mean, he's an absolute elite pass catcher, can be used all over the field, in the slot, outside. He's basically a very large wide receiver, which works really well. We've seen it with, Darren Waller and Kelsey. I would venture to say that, it's possible that his ceiling looks like that. So for me, in a tight end premium league with the guys that are off the board, Kyle Pitts seems to pretty easily slot himself in at the 106. I've been telling myself this offseason that 105 would be the earliest I would consider Kyle Pitts. So 106 sounds right.
Hey, I like the pick, and for his future team, it's going to save them money, because if he was classified as a wide receiver, Jimmy Graham went through this argument years ago when they franchise tagged him. He's like, man, I'm a wide receiver, and the NFLPA and the NFL owners were like, sorry, buddy, you're a tight end, you're going to get franchised. Like, well, no, I love the pick. I won't love it as much when he's a Lion, Jerry, but we'll see what shakes out with Kyle Pitts. Although me and Garrett Price of the Dynasty Nerds, we did the rookie tight ends together, and he and I fantasy drafted Kyle Pitts to L.A. with the Chargers and Justin Herbert, because Hunter Henry is a free agent. And I could very easily see them letting him walk and drafting someone like Pitts in that early teen section of the draft. So that would be ginormous. That could actually spring him into like number 4, number 5 consideration in that kind of offense with that kind of QB. So I'm going to throw it to Lou. Lou, are you a Pitts guy? And then give us your pick at the 107.
Yeah, and definitely in tight end premium leagues, those are pretty much the only times I'm looking at tight ends in a spot like that. And, he seems to be, way ahead of the rest of tight ends that are coming out of this class. Whereas some of these other years we have more tight ends. But I think Pitts has really shown that, like Tyler said, like he's basically a wide receiver. And we've seen what wide receiver type tight ends can do in the NFL. And we don't want to see, when we're looking at our fantasy teams, a guy that's blocking half of the snaps on a given week. So I definitely look towards guys like Pitts when I'm looking at tight ends.
All right, my friend. And then fire away with who you would be taking at 107.
And I think you kind of talked me into switching up what I wanted to do here. Now I'm more sort of getting worried about getting a QB. So I think I'm going to go with Trey Lance from North Dakota State. He said the problem with him not playing this season is we don't see as much tape on him. Obviously, like, I'm not trying to say I watch a ton of tape on North Dakota State or anything, but from what I've seen, he seems like he's a guy who's pretty athletic and fits the mold of an NFL QB. He's 6'4", 220. So he's not one of these like Tua smaller guys or Kyler. But Trey Lance, I mean, he seems to be the type of guy who, depending on his landing spot, could come out of this season, the off season, looking like a guy that you want by the end of the first round versus a guy that, depending on if he comes out as a clear backup, he might not be the same guy. So I think Trey Lance is who I'd go with the pick, so I don't run out of QBs by the time it's my next pick.
Well, that's fine. I forgot to tell you, we always just draft as if each pick is independent of the last one. So the fact that you didn't get a quarterback wouldn't necessarily, you're not rounding out a team. You're just drafting as if, hey, here's the best player available. Here's my team. Obviously, there's going to be some context about rosters, and we're just trying to get the talent out there. But I'm looking at the draft order. So it came out today per ESPN that the San Francisco 49ers said that if they can, quote-unquote, find a better option at quarterback, they would let Jimmy Garoppolo walk. And I'm sitting here, again, I want to make sure I always credit my sources, tankathon.com, and I'm looking at Carolina currently drafting 8th, and I'm looking at San Francisco drafting currently 12th. If Trey Lance landed in either one of those systems to learn from a Matt Rule / Joe Brady or a Matt Shanahan, and think about it, you could redshirt him for an entire year. You got Teddy B under a team-friendly contract. You've got Jimmy Garoppolo under a team-friendly contract. You could very well do what the Miami Dolphins have done with Tua, what the Chiefs did with Mahomes. You could give this guy a year to learn the system, learn to be a pro, acclimate to the big city, and that sounds crazy. But when you're coming from North Dakota State to potentially San Francisco or Charlotte, North Carolina, there is going to be a bit of a culture shock. So I could see some scenarios where Trey Lance would be extremely, extremely highly coveted on Superflex draft boards. All right, Jerry, you're part of the Devy team here at the Dynasty Warzone. What's your take on Trey Lance before you crack the pick at 108?
You got to have a quarterback that runs. I mean, look at the top end of all the championship rosters. Tyler went in on it earlier. You got to have guys that can have that floor when he was talking about Justin Fields. And that's what Trey Lance can do. Trey Lance is he's a weird subject this offseason because he didn't play in the one game that he did play. I mean, he wasn't great. But when he played the full season at North Dakota State the year before, dude set the world on fire. He's a big dude. He's fast. And the combine's going to make him look great. That's exactly where that dude is going to thrive. It's 100% dependent on where he goes in the draft. I really think he's going to go, and I think he's going to be in position to start. And here's the thing about Superflex drafts. Just take a damn quarterback, because for the most part, they're going to retain their value far more than any of these other people. But what I'm going to do, and Tyler, real son of a bitch, taking Kyle Pitts, I really thought I was going to be the guy to get him, but I'm going to take my top wide receiver, and that's Ja'Marr Chase, LSU. He's another interesting topic because he opted out this year. And we've seen Devonta Smith just go absolutely bananas at Alabama. But Ja'Marr Chase outperformed Justin Jefferson, who literally today broke the single season rookie record. Justin Jefferson has just been unbelievable. And that was in a position where people really thought he was not going to be able to replace Stephon Diggs. And that was wrong because he has thrived in that situation. And Ja'Marr Chase, as a 19-year-old at LSU, with Justin Jefferson in the office and Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the offense, outperformed him, won the Biletnikoff top wide receiver in college football. Dude is a superhuman. Dude is an alpha. I know our buddy Kane at Devy Kane got into a little bit of a tussle talking about alpha wide receivers, and it's Ja'Marr Chase. Give me Ja'Marr Chase. He's a big dude. He's great. He's awesome. Wherever he lands, unless it is the Detroit Lions, because they suck the life out of any and all talent that comes into the league, he will thrive.
All right. Well, the Detroit Lions are what I like to refer to as an NFL succubus. They will suck the life right out of your players, your soul, your fan base, everybody. The Detroit Lions are bad. Now, these next two guys, I like both of them about equally. They both come from the same school, so you can probably guess the two guys I'm talking about very, very quickly. For me, to make this pick right here on the clock without seeing a combine, because, if one of these guys goes to a bad landing spot versus a good one, that could be a tiebreaker. We've seen what Calvin Ridley has done in the NFL, and it would come down to who their quarterback and OC was, depending on who I would be drafting here. But I am going to go with Devonta Smith of the Alabama Crimson Tide, wide receiver, very slight fellow. And I saw some memes and some jokes about a picture of him standing on the sidelines of that game the other day. Here's the thing. I've been a Colts fan. I'm wearing this ratty-ass Colts hat on this podcast live on YouTube. And you know what? T.Y. Hilton's been a very slight wide receiver for about the last decade. And you know what? The last 2 to 3 years, he has fought some injuries. But through the majority of the first 5-6 years of his career, T.Y. Hilton was a baller. And he never had the luxury of being the kind of talent that these guys are. So I've seen this size receiver work in the NFL. I would be, like I said, if one guy gets paired up with Justin Herbert and the other guy gets paired up with Jimmy Garoppolo, well, I think it's kind of obvious who I would like. But today, in a vacuum, it's hard to go against Smith. So I'm going to go Devonta Smith at the 109. Tyler, now you just got a firsthand look at Devonta Smith as a Notre Dame fan. And I'm with you. I'm a quasi-Notre Dame fan because my father was a Notre Dame fan. But you got a good look at this guy. You didn't get a good look at Waddle because he got hurt earlier in the year. What's your take on Waddle before you make the 110?
You know, Waddle's an interesting one for me. I think given the two options that I would absolutely go on with Devonta Smith, I tend to, well, I don't want to get into the debate about, you know, the analytics or tape, but, you know, there's just everything I see about Devonta Smith, you know, he does it for me. The guy's great. So I would have gone Devonta Smith with Waddle. You know, I'm not really exactly sure. I guess for me, the jury's not out on him entirely. I think I got to do a bit more research on him to really get a good grasp on what I think about him and how I feel about him and whatnot, as he's not a guy that I've 100% considered. But, you know, I definitely think when we're talking about the next wide receiver off the board, Waddle has to be in that conversation.
All right, man. You're up with the 110, your last pick of this little exercise. Yeah,
so I thought about this one maybe differently and strategically, but I thought to myself, like, all right, I got the 110, like maybe I got a decent team. So I think I probably would go quarterback here. And I think that for me comes between Mac Jones and Kyle Trask. I think they both have their issues. I don't necessarily think they're slam dunk in any way, shape, or form. I personally, we talked about or touched on it earlier, that I do tend to like, you know, Alabama quarterbacks, they have so much around them to work with. And, you know, honestly, like things always haven't worked out. I know it's a bit of a narrative and you judge the player, not the helmet. But at the same time, I'd lean Trask in this instance, just considering, you know, he's got the size. I don't love him as a prospect, but there's just a lot of things that I do: arm strength, production. And the one thing that I like about Trask is I think he has good eye discipline. I think he does a really good job looking off safeties and whatnot. And I think those are the kind of things that are a little bit harder to teach. I think that there are issues with him as a prospect, but I think some of those issues can be ironed out, for example, if he was able to sit on the bench for a year and learn behind somebody. So, you know, at the 110, there are some decent prospects here, but I think considering this is super flex and how important quarterbacks are, and then this is the cheapest time to get them, I would probably draft Kyle Trask at the 110 without any expectation of starting him in the 2021 season.
Well, here's what I like about these guys, and this is, again, we can use Josh Allen as an example. We can use Lamar as an example. When the quarterbacks go later in the first round or early in the second round, more often than not, they tend to go to better franchises. Lamar Jackson went to the Ravens. The Ravens did the right thing by him by building the entire offense and drafting the rest of that team around him. We've seen what the Bills did for Josh Allen. So when a quarterback goes a little bit later, like if Trask were to go, let's say the Colts are going to be drafted in the back 14, they're going to win a playoff game or two, maybe. So let's say that the Colts get Trask at 12. Well, that's a ready-made organization, right? You got T.Y. Hilton, you got Pitts, you got Parrish coming back from injury. You've got Jonathan Taylor. You know, you got a good offensive line. That's insert and go, and that's a good organization. So it may wind up, he may even go higher, depending on where he lands. He could end up being the backfill for Drew Brees. He could sit behind a year. What a great opportunity for a guy like Kyle Trask to sit behind a guy like Tom Brady for 1 year in Tampa Bay. Tom Brady, you know, everybody says you can't play forever, and Tom, you know, and Father Time's undefeated. Well, Tom Brady's calling bullshit right now. So what a great opportunity to sit behind a guy like Touchdown Tommy for a year and pick up the NFL. So I like the pick, depending on where he goes. We'll see where he goes in rookie drafts. But Lou, anything on Trask before you make the 111?
No, I like Trask. I think if this was a different year, then it'd be possible that we were seeing him as the number one pick. I don't know if necessarily that he would ever beat out a Trevor Lawrence. He's been the number one pick, it seems like, for the last 3 years we've known this was coming. But Trask definitely was putting up some nice stats this season that I thought he was going to end up being a little higher up the board than it seems like he is right now. But I like Trask a lot. I'm going to go a little different with my pick. And different in a sense. I think I draft a little differently than some other people, where I know from my own personal history of being in leagues is that I'm always depleted at running backs and quarterbacks. And I feel like I have a better sense of picking up a random wide receiver off of waivers later in the year. So I'm actually going to go with another running back with my pick, Javonte Williams. It's got a little recency bias because I watched that game he had against Miami where he had over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he fits the profile of another former Lion named Joique Bell that Tyler remembers that I used to love playing him. I had flex Joique Bell for like an entire season for PPR one year. But I mean, Williams seems like a guy who's a great pass catcher. He's just small. He's only 5'11", 220, but imagine that running full steam ahead at you. So I think he's the type of guy that it almost doesn't matter what team he's on, that he could just be a third down back on a random team and maybe get because of injuries or whatnot a little more usage. But I like Javonte Williams from what I've seen, and I think he'd be my next pick.
Hey,
I think that's a good one. I think that's a good one. That was a guy that was in the mix for mine too.
Oh, tell me he sniped you because I like
stealing
him.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, we had Ray on Ray GQ a couple weeks ago, and he was all about Javonte Williams. He was praising him up and down, and that is a well-respected man that I steal a lot of his information because it helps me, and that's what I'm here to do, is steal all good information because I'm lazy and I don't actually want to do the work myself. So Javonte Williams is a good pick, and I think depending where he goes, the hype is just going to build on this kid. So I like that pick a ton. And now I'm in a pickle, though, because everything about me says take a quarterback, Jerry. But then Devonta Smith is sitting there, and the hype is there.
No. I took Smith at 109. I said the name Jalen Waddle when I was comparing the two, but so Waddle's on the board, Bateman's on the board. You're making the last pick, so there are some wide receivers out there.
All right. Well, now I sort of want to go bold.
You're making the last pick. You can screw it up. I know you, but you're making the last pick.
I can always screw it up. You've been in plenty of rookie drafts with me. I'm going to go Chris Olave, wide receiver from Ohio State. He has tons and tons of. He can just make great moves. He makes great catches. In the playoff game, he just created an unbelievable amount of separation on a great corner. Got his 2 feet inbounds. It was an unbelievable touchdown catch. The dude is great. Listen to our man Shane Hallam. He's an Ohio State alum. He may slurp them up a little bit more than you want to hear about, but when you curb stomp every single team that you play against, I sort of get it. I wouldn't know that because I don't watch teams that win. But Chris Olave is a guy that I really think is going to be creeping. I don't think he's actually going to be drafted in the first round of rookie drafts when it comes to it. But he's going to be the guy that you get in the second round that the teams that took the guys in the back end of the first round are going to wish they spent their pick on him. He just tons of separation. And listen, Ohio State has a history of just bad motherfuckers at wide receiver, for lack of a better phrase. I mean, how long has Randy been talking about Terry McLaurin? Since Nick Whalum brought him up to you. Yeah, I mean, Michael Thomas is good. I mean, they just continuously have
Curtis
these guys.
Samuel's getting better.
Yeah, well, let's hope.
Paris Campbell has flashed. A lot of the credit to that wide receiver room in Ohio State has a lot to do with Brian Hartline, who I believe is still the wide receiver coach there. And even though he wasn't a household name as a wide receiver in the NFL, Brian Hartline was a good little technician and a good NFL player for a good number of years. And speaking of good, man, we had a good little mock draft. So I'm going to read it back to you real quick, and then I'm going to give Tyler and Lou a minute to promote what's going on with the Fantasy Hot Read as well as their personal handle. So 101, layup, Trevor Lawrence. Number 2, Justin Fields. 3, Travis Etienne. 4, Najee Harris. 5, Zach Wilson. 6, Kyle Pitts. 7, Trey Lance. 8, Jamar Chase. 9, Devonta Smith. 10, Kyle Trask. 11, Javonte Williams. And number 12, Chris Olave, Ohio State University. So, guys, thank you so much for jumping on with us on a Sunday night with championship football to be determined in the NFC least. So at least we picked the right game to waste some time and talk rookies and start getting everybody ready, because I've got the fever, man. I am every time I log into Google, I'm looking for a new mock draft. Who are the Colts taking? Where are the skill guys going? I'm starting to get the hype, man. Tyler, what can we look forward to in the offseason from the Hot Read?
Yeah, so again, find me on Twitter at FFTyler. Also follow at Fantasy Hot Read. Like I said, we're crushing a bunch of redraft stuff, and we're going to have a lot of end-of-the-year stuff, wrap-up stuff happening right now. We already got a pod out with our 2021 rankings for running backs and wide receivers, or quarterbacks and running backs, sorry. And then we're going to be talking about a lot of questions that are looming for NFC and AFC teams in terms of fantasy, what we expect to happen. We'll be closing things out here with some content in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So make sure you check me out on Twitter and check the handle out again at Fantasy Hot Read. And then I'll hand it over to Lou here. But if you're interested in DFS, I'm just the host guy. I would like to say I'm barely above average DFS, but Lou is the guy that you want to follow for the DFS content.
Well, I'm excited to have Lou hang out with me because I am self-dubbed Mr. Mincash as it relates to GPP tournaments. If there is a $5 entry fee and I can win 8, you're looking at it. I'm the guy, so I need Lou's help. Lou, what's going on with you, and are you going to be putting out any NFL playoff DFS content for us to consume out there on Twitter?
Yeah, I think we'll be doing some stuff for the playoffs. This year with more games each of the wild card days, we should be able to have some nice slates. It's usually just a 2-game slate, but I think they're going to be 3-game slates this season, which are always better than 2 gamers. But even if we don't do a pod, I'm tweeting out like prop bets or, things like Marvin Jones against the Vikings, just jam them in. And so if you guys are interested, I'm at Lou Dog Sports, and I'll do the Fantasy Hot Read playoff stuff with Tyler on probably a pod or 2.
Hey, man, I can't wait. I'm going to be checking it out. And, there are 3 games. Remember, you get that 3-way action at no additional cost. You're money ahead. At least that normally you pay extra for that 3-way action. But, Jerry, you have anything before we close the door on this mock draft and get these guys back to the second half of the Sunday Nighter?
Listen, you are exponentially better than me at DFS if you can win cash. I don't even partake because I enjoy my money. And this is a person that was a poker player for a long time, and I have pissed ungodly amounts of money down the drain in back rooms of restaurants and garages and wherever else you can imagine. And I would still rather do that than just light my money on fire in DFS like I have done an umpteen amount of times. But it was wonderful to have you guys. It's always good. Tyler's from the same hometown as me. Spoiler alert that people may or may not know that. We are all from a country bumpkin town in southeastern Michigan, so it's always good to have the homie here. We're finally going to get into a league next year, so he will get to see the true pinnacle of dog shit dynasty play out of me that Randy gets to see so often.
Jerry, you're selling yourself short. You're not a bad dynasty player. You are the unluckiest person I think I've met in a long time.
That's his nicest way possible. That's the nicest thing he's ever said.
That is the nicest way of putting that Jerry's bad dynasty player. No, I'm just kidding, man. I love Jerry. And make sure you're following Tyler at FFTylerO and Lou at Lou Dog Sports, man. You don't want to miss their content. And they're probably going to be hanging out with us a little bit more here at the Dynasty Warzone as we go into an off-season of shenanigans. I might have Lou stop by the People's Propcast with me, and we'll talk some prop bets. But I'm going to get off of here. I'm going to go look at some second half action with Lou. But on behalf of Tyler, Lou, and Jerry, I am Memphis. And remember, here at the Dynasty Warzone, we are just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you back here on Tuesday with Mark Schofield of Touchdown Wire. Have a great week, guys.